That song still just makes me so happy. I wonder if we'll ever get to a point where I'm like tired of it. But
I know the whole time in the background, I'm like clapping along and dancing. I'm ready.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. It is March 11th, and we are talking about starting a law firm. And I'm Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. We're here.
I'm Hannah Hembree Bell. Hello.
Hello. And we have our very special invited guest, Hillary Walsh. And this is like a very fun event for me in particular because these are two of my besties. And so I'm so excited to bring them together. And both of these women run amazing law firms and have a lot to share. So I think, for anyone who is just interested in what goes into running a law firm, if it's, in your mind, maybe down the road, or you just are curious about it, this is a good show for you. So any other intro things, Hannah, housekeeping?
Yeah, I mean, whenever we were talking about this whole show and the whole concept, the idea was, okay, the things that Kate and I sit around and talk about at lunch, or other law mom friends have mentioned to us. And I swear, you're not a law mom if at some point you haven't thought, like, what if I had my own firm? What if I went and hung out my own shingle? And I think for a lot of us, that initial time when you become a mom is when that thought hits you like a ton of bricks, because maybe you've been in big law working a gajillion hours, or maybe some time on maternity leave made you realize you really kind of want to work 20 hours a week instead. And should you start your own practice? So to me, this topic and today is super important because I think most of us, if we're honest, have thought about it at some point. And maybe just hearing us talk about it, you're like, hey, if those three can do it, well, I can do it, which is a very fair thought to have. So I'm super excited to do this. I'm very excited. Hillary and I are online friends and through Kate friends, but now we're in-person online friends, I guess. So I'm super excited to hear her perspective. One thing I think is important for us to note is, in case it's not clear from what we're already saying, is all of us own our own firms. And all of us, I think, or at least I know me and Kate and Hillary, tell me if I'm wrong, but we worked for someone else before and then went out on our own. And I think each of us did that in a pretty different way. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that story. I don't know how much I even know about it with your story, Kate, and very excited to hear from Hillary coming from Phoenix, right? So this is Law Moms National today.
Yes.
All over the
U.S. I hear you guys have bad weather in Texas, and we have nice weather here. So
we got
law moms transcending the bad weather in March in Austin.
Yes. And hey, one technical, is anybody else getting feedback?
No, it might be my mic. Oh, it's because your ear pods aren't in anymore, Hannah. So you're getting echo.
I'll solve the problem. Sorry.
So why don't we start each of us by talking about our firms, and when we started them, where they are now, and then we can sort of talk about the stories about how we made the decision to launch our firms. Hannah, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So I guess let me start, kind of back up a little bit. So I went to law school with 3 kids in tow. So I was not like a college straight through person. I was thinking about this. My oldest, Lucy, she was starting kindergarten on my first day of law school. So I was able to drop her off at kindergarten and then go. And then I had, I guess my middle would have been about 8 or 3, and then my youngest 2. So I started in that vantage point. And when I ended up doing better than I kind of thought I would in law school, I was kind of surprised myself, and was able to go the big law route. And I'd been a recruiter and had a recruiting business before I went into law school. So I met my former boss and mentor and friend and person, Donna. And Donna, if you're watching this, hello. And decided to go do employment law with her. I mean, that made sense, right? I'd been a recruiter, so doing employment law was just a perfect match. And I enjoyed that. Love Donna, still do. But I at the same time, so sort of 2 parallel things going on, starting out at a big law firm, which is its own thing. And then I was going through my own divorce and then custody situation. And those 2 things were happening at the same time. And through that process, I would be working all day, big law, hours, on my my work, my employment law, Title VII discrimination and stuff. And then I'd have to be at night working on my own custody case. So, I mean, I was just kind of like always doing law things and sleeping 4 hours a night or something. And then once my custody stuff was done, I realized I wanted to be, I don't want is the wrong word, but I felt like destined or like called, compelled. It almost felt like there wasn't even a choice, honestly, but that I had to be the sort of lawyer I wished I'd had throughout my whole process. And I had good help along the way. And my lawyer Hector is like my other like legal pillar in my world. And he's awesome. But there is a piece of that I think for women going through the process and guys and that I could try to help hold their hand and journey with them. So that's when I was like, I know I'm giving up this awesome job with awesome people and good money and everything else in big law. And everyone thought I was insane because I'm like, I'm going to leave this and I'm going to go out and start a family law firm. And they were like, you are nuts. You are dumb. I mean, no one probably said dumb, but they did say you're crazy and you're going to hate it. And essentially like the door's open for when you're ready to come back. And I'm not going back. So here I am. That's the start of the journey. What made me do this?
Well, two questions. Is your dog named after your lawyer?
Yes. Hector the dog. So there's Hector Grande and Hector Cito. And Hector Grande is the person. He's from Puerto Rico and he loves this story. He's not, and in fact, there are 2 dogs out there that I am aware of who are named Hector after Hector Grande. So we have little bitty Hector Cito and then Hector Grande.
That's adorable. I just put it together. I love your little dog, Hector. And then tell us just briefly, Hannah, about your firm now. Where are you? Who do you have at the firm? What's going on these days?
Yeah. So at the time I was living in San Antonio and working there. And then I'm divorced and remarried, and my now husband Drew, he is our guest last week. So he works for King Spalding here, and they have the office in Austin. So, and he was living in DC. So he kind of some things happened, but anyway, we relocated to Austin. So that's why Austin, we have an office in San Antonio still and here. But yeah, we're growing. We do family law now and estate planning. Our family law clients are getting divorced and everything. And it's like, oh, duh, you have to get a new will because we can't just let stuff go to the X factor, as we call him or her, right? The X factor, or what about kids and blended families? So we started realizing people be like, oh, and do this. Like, you're my lawyer now. If you're somebody's divorce lawyer, a lot of times they think of you as like, they're a lawyer for life or whatever. So we started doing that. And we've got an estate planning team and a family law team. Several people kind of on both sides. I think we have like between part-time people and all that, I think somebody was saying our last payroll had 20 people on it. I mean, not that there are like 20 full-time people, but we've got a team kind of all over the place. And we say we protect people's kids, their money, and their business. So we do divorce stuff, estate planning, and part of estate planning and divorce is some small business work too. And I love it. It's the best. It's also, which I'm sure we'll talk about, sometimes it feels like the worst, but generally speaking, more days than not, it's the best. So that's why I'm still doing it.
Okay, Hillary, you're up.
I don't know where to begin. And I guess my question for you, I know that I want to talk about me, but I want to ask you while we're here is when you were going through your divorce and you were going through all this and you were kind of moonlighting as your own family lawyer, what was the most painful part of that experience for you, and how do you help touch that pain point for your existing clients? Because that's where the magic happens as a law firm owner.
Well, Hillary, we're just diving in.
Man, going in.
Yeah. So
that's what you get with Hillary, FYI. So
yeah, I love that. I mean, the hardest part, hands down, I think, is, and this is getting into a whole thing, but
So just go there. There's no right answer. Just tell me.
no, I know. I mean, it's just that when you're getting divorced, and especially if you're divorcing a very difficult person, you have to convince people over and over and over and over that you're not crazy, that you're not imagining this, that what's happening to you matters, that you, even if you're not perfect, the Constitution does not require perfection to be a full parent, and to really empathize with people with that perspective of what they're going through. And then also, people love to give out advice to people who are getting divorced. And they'll say things like, you have to fight for your kids. You can't stop at anything. You can't give him anything he wants, blah, blah. And that is very easy for people to say, but they don't write the check. And so getting divorced costs a fortune, especially if you're getting divorced in a difficult situation. It is like expensive, for real expensive, if it's easy. And if it's any kind of, I always tell people fighting costs extra. So if there's any kind of fighting, getting divorced is very expensive. And people are so judgy. Like what I always say, that one of the hardest things of going through that, this is probably even more real, is going through the whole thing. Because when I first got divorced, my kids did not live with me primarily, which some people know and some people don't know. And it's a whole thing. But what I had to go through at that point is I had a judgmental streak, where like I kind of, and I remember growing up, and there was a mom in my hometown who I knew of did not have her children, and they lived with the dad. And I remember thinking to myself, what did she do? She must do some drugs or something. That's what I thought in my 18-year-old head. And then I was that mom, and I didn't do some drugs or something, right? Or anything like that. But my kids weren't with me primarily. And I say I had to chew those judgments like gravel in my teeth. Like that's the only way I know how to explain what that was like. Because I was at this big law firm, and I'd say like, oh, hey, and I'm Hannah. And one of the things in San Antonio, if anybody's from San Antonio watching, you know what I mean, is like when you'll say I have these kids, and then the automatic question is, well, where do they go to school? Because there's like very private school culture in San Antonio. And they did not go to school in the same town even. And they'd look at you like, what? And I used to kind of like, be ashamed of it and like just kind of head down, whatever. And then over time, I just learned to keep my chin up and just own it of, life is not black and white. I'm a brownie making, lunch packing mama whose kids are not with me primarily. And so one of the things I bring to the table of like why some days I swear you're not doing family law if you don't consider quitting like once a week with people's BS. But it's like I have to help them just with empathy and understanding. And what, I don't know, one of the things we're built on is like, I always say we fight hard, but smart, meaning like brass tacks, you got to pay your bills. Brass tacks, your kids, like we have to protect certain things. And so trying to not, because like a lot of lawyers, I think in family law, they just want to spend your money covering their own honeys and making sure they've done 25,000 steps. And that's, if you just do all, it's very expensive. People can't, like most of us cannot afford to do that. And so trying to meet people where they are and not just like throw legal recommendations at them. And then like, well, this is what the law is. And this is what the jurisprudence, the cases would say. That don't help people when it's Friday night and their ex isn't handing over the kids.
I think that shoulder dance would though.
Yeah, I know, right? Jurisdictional jurisprudence. That's I don't know. We're going to.
Added bonus. You don't have to pay for this.
I know. That's good. Oh my God, y'all, about that. One of the anyway, if we have time, I'll tell the funny story about like it with no quarters I don't shimmy. Remember, Kate, were you hearing that?
Oh yes, I think you should tell it now. We have time.
Okay. Well, I don't know if our friend's watching this. I won't call her out, but she tells the story of when she first moved to town and was a lawyer. She went to lunch with like an older, I don't know, like crotchety kind of older lawyer going to teach her some things. And one of the things and I'm sure y'all understand this in immigration, but in family law that you run into is people run out of money before the job's done. And then what? And it's hard, right? Because you feel bad for the people, but also you have other clients you're responsible to. You have yourself, your family you're responsible to. It's a whole thing. And she said that, that he told her, young lady, those hotels on the side of the road, motels, and they have the beds that shake if you put the quarters in. He says, no quarters, no shimmy. So it just cracked me up anyway. So that's what I was thinking. Yeah, like no quarters, no shimmy, I guess.
Yeah, no quarters, no shake.
I should, yeah.
I've never been to a hotel that has one of those beds, and I'm thinking that maybe that needs to go on my bucket list.
I know. I've seen it on a movie, I feel
Yeah,
like.
it's on Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. You remember that?
I mean, I remember the movie, but I don't remember the beds that shake.
We're way off
Like,
topic.
this is how I got a drinking problem. When I was little. So it sounds like self-trust was a big part of your journey and a big part of what you help your clients reestablish. And it's probably one of your superpowers as a business owner, because so much trust, like we have to trust our decisions and our intuition, even when the data might tell us something different. We have to have so much self-trust, and it can be kind of like, it may be the most painful muscle to develop.
Well, say, Hillary, that's so interesting because this concept of self-trust and the whole sort of mindset world is newer to me. I think y'all are both farther along in that journey than me, but maybe you could tell us a little bit when you say self-trust. I mean, there are two words like trust yourself, right? I hear that, but I know that the sum of that concept is greater than the two parts of the word. What does that mean to you? And like you kind of started touching on, especially in the context of maybe leaving something behind and starting your own business. I think that's a concept a lot of people haven't explored much. I'd love for you to talk about that.
I think, I mean, in what you were describing, the markers of self-trust were really apparent for me, as you were talking about, like when you were leaving your big law firm and everyone was saying like, see you later, the door is always open if you want to come back. And it seems like you had a little bit of a prove them wrong attitude, which meant you were going to prove yourself right. And that is, I trust myself enough, possibly because I feel a little backed into a corner and you don't believe in me, but I believe in me enough that I want to prove you wrong, because it's gratifying sometimes to prove people wrong. I'm very competitive like that too. And it's a really good self-trust tool. But I think that if we have trust in ourselves, then we can have trust in others, because we know that at the end of the day, no one can really hurt you because you trust in yourself, that you have the capability of being able to figure it out. I remember reading, I haven't read the whole book, and I know Kate hasn't either. We're the worst mindset students, the worst self-help students, because neither of us have ever read all of Think and Grow Rich, which is like the go-to book for an entrepreneur, allegedly. We're living proof that you can like only read pieces or like get the Cliff Notes version. It's like I don't know. It's like watching the Mickey Mouse Christmas and being like, I love Jesus. But anyway, so I have read parts of Think and Grow Rich, and one of my favorite parts of that book, and it has really transformed the way I feel about education, is there's a scene in it where, and I'm not even gonna remember the person's name, it's this bad, but I think it was Henry Ford. Maybe it was Andrew Carnegie. I don't know. They talk about
I was thinking Carnegie or Ford. I've read part of it too. Hashtag same.
well, maybe you'll help me. You'll help guide me through this, because the takeaway is what's important. The character in the story clearly isn't, because I didn't remember his name, but he's like it at the time, and he gets put on trial for something, and they're trying to grill him about his education.
Ford.
Henry
It was
Ford.
Ford.
Yes. And he basically says, an education, I'm not an educated man, but I have an education. Like the thing about being, and I think this kind of touches on what the three of us I know believe, which is we can be really good lawyers and terrible business owners. And we can be really terrible lawyers and excellent business owners. And it's not the like framed plaques on the wall. It's not the degrees that make you good at what you do. It's the education. And sometimes the education has nothing to do with school. It has, for me, so much to do with self-trust, because I trust that the thing that's between my ears, my life experiences, will help me solve this problem. My life experiences make me uniquely qualified to help undocumented immigrants, even though I'm a white lady from Kansas, born and raised in a field. Well, not born, but you get the idea. And don't speak Spanish. Like, I'm a good American and only speak English. But every single one of my clients is from somewhere else. But because of my education, that did not come from a school. I trust that I can meet people where they are. And I love that you said that too. You know, you got to be able to meet people where they are, because that's like your empathy factor. And that's a superpower. You can't have empathy for people if you don't even trust your own emotions and the way you feel right then. Like, you know, when you feel something about someone, that's why they say first impressions are so important. It's because the truth don't lie. And like your intuition, it's not going to lie to you. It can't lie. So for me, that's what self-trust is for me, which allows me to know that other people are not here to hurt me. They're here to teach me different things that I need to know. My team's pitching in. I brought my cheerleaders. I don't know if you guys did.
Yeah, come on, Team Hembree Bell, Team LGL.
Well, one thing I think I was going to add, Hillary, that one of the books I am making it all the way through, and Kate had told me about this, and several people, the Will Smith. I don't know if it's like, I don't know, whatever you call it. It's called Will. Is that an autobiography? I don't remember which it is.
I reread that one in like 3 days.
Oh yeah. And that's concept of self-trust. And I posted on this group we're in, just the resonance of the statement, I was right about me. And to me, I just got chills even saying it, that idea. And I think that's anybody who's thinking of going out on their own. There's part of you that thinks, and this is exactly what I thought, I think I can do that. I think it's going to work. I think it's really going to work. So I got on a plane on a Labor Day weekend. When I got onto no one should leave me alone with no internet or anything else to do but a pen and paper for like 4 hours on a plane, because God knows what I'll do. And I got on that plane. And when I came back out, I had made up my mind I was going to start a family law firm. And I knew it was going to work. And I totally get that concept. And I guess that's what I didn't know was self-trust at the time, or like willing to bet on me a little bit to see what happens. So like that Will Smith idea that he encapsulated with, I was right about me. And for any law moms considering this, that part of you that thinks, I think I could do that, in this like knowing gut level, almost like, did you discover a secret feeling? That's how it felt to me of, that you're probably right. I mean, you're probably right that you can do it. That's that thing inside of you is confirmation of your future. I don't know, it's kind of woo-woo, but like your future calling out to you is like that resonance of you can do it. So I didn't even think about that part.
I like if this were a brief, this is kind of how my mind thinks, like in an outline. But if this were a brief, it would be like, that would be the point heading, but then there would be exceptions, like, and it's not these things. Because I want to add an exception to that. When you think negative things about yourself, you're not right about who you are. Like, that's a lie. I remember going to I grew up in a really Baptist upbringing, Southern Baptist. I don't know about the other Baptists. I don't even know what they do, but like everybody always made sure to know that we were Southern Baptists. So I'm like, are there Northern Baptists?
There's General Baptist. I grew up in the Baptist church also. There's General Baptist and Southern Baptist, and it's a whole thing.
And there's Free Will Baptist.
Yep.
So basically, like, free shower. You get a one-time free bath, but like you can come and go in heaven and hell, I think is like the difference between the two. I don't know. I joke about it, but I learned so many good things in the church. And I went to a conference. I went to a conference called the Color Conference, put on by Hillsong, which is like a non-denominational Christian church, a global church. And I went when my family was stationed in England. And Bob Goff was one of the main speakers at this event. And he's this really cool, also a lawyer, a really cool guy. And I had seen him speak at our church when we were living in Las Vegas. And I had read his book, and I was just a fan. And at the time, I was going through really bad postpartum depression and had a lot of suicidal ideation. And it was really serious. Like, I remember talking to my husband and telling him, like, it's not really a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. Like, I feel like every day I'm saying little goodbyes to my kids. And I went like the coincidence of how I got to this conference is like a whole other story, but it's remarkable. So I'll just kind of put a pin in that. So I get to this conference, and Bob Goff is saying, if you hear any voice in your heart, or in your ear, whatever, in your head, other than you are my beloved. It's not the voice of God. And I think if we even take this out of the religious context, Kate and I were just doing this in our mindset call where the teacher, his name is David Nagel, and he's just fantastic. But he was talking about the universal truth of how you always hear three voices, and you need to learn to make friends with them because they're
What are
three.
the three voices? I don't know nothing about this.
I know it's spirit, so it's like your higher self, it's God, it's the perfect version of you. It's what Will Smith is talking about in his book where he's like, when you know you, you know you. It's what you're talking about when you feel. It's almost like that. I get my arm hair, my leg hair, my neck hair all stands up when it speaks. Some people are not as hairy, so maybe it's goosebumps for some people. But you get the idea. The other people are going to be, I think it's your parents. You're going to hear your parents speak. And I don't remember who the third person is. Maybe it's just your current self. Kate, do you remember? I
Maybe
feel
it's
like
the
we
mean
do it
version of
all the
yourself
time.
or something. The mean.
Um, I don't remember who the third person is. And I want to say for anybody watching who's like, okay, well, these ladies just know themselves, and that's how you do this. Like,
Legit.
I do not. I question myself and my decisions like all the time. And it's something that I really work on is this whole intuition piece. Another thing that Nagel teaches us is that like, fear is not intuition. Intuition doesn't tell you what not to do. And I got really messed up when I became a mom about intuition and thinking that all of my intrusive thoughts about horrible things happening to my children were intuition. And in the beginning, I would be like, "Oh, I can't fly on Thursdays," like stupid stuff like that. And I finally got to accept because enough of those things didn't happen that wasn't intuition. But I mean, I guess what I want to say to people who are watching, who are thinking, Hillary and Hannah obviously have so much confidence in themselves and their self trust, is that I don't consider myself someone who has that, nailed down. I'm working on it and I'm getting better at it. And I have formed friendships with women like these, and both of them can attest to the fact that I call them and I'm like, I have no idea how to even feel about the situation or what to think about it. And there's a way to do it, even if you're still working on trusting yourself, is what I want to say.
Well, and I think one thing to keep in mind, because I talk to people about this in the divorce context, and I go give little talks at St. Mary's Law School and stuff. And the way you gain trust is in the rearview mirror. So you don't just get a deposit of trust and confidence in yourself that you can draw against. It's not like a trust retainer. You have to earn that. And the way you do that is you do like, and that's the same thing with bravery or any of these concepts that become core to who we are. You don't just like trust yourself until you've done things and been trustworthy and been courageous. You look backwards and you're like, oh, look there, I was right. Oh, I acted brave and I didn't die. And then you sort of like in your rear view mirror, consider that about yourself and then you own it. So I don't want people to think like, well, one day I'm just going to feel like I trust myself. One day I'm just going to feel worthy or whatever. No, you literally do it. You have to act it and then you get it, right? I think they said the difference, and that's in the Will book too. I'm just like, all I'm thinking about right now because I've been listening to it nonstop is right in school, it's first the lesson, then the test. And in life, it's the test and then the lesson. And so the test part, Kate, I think what you're saying in the way you grow that muscle is by doing it and then you own the lesson afterwards. I guess I think it's exercising it and just deciding to try it, I think.
I think that's so true in law firm ownership too, because for me, as long as I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, like does this serve the ultimate purpose of why I'm here? Like, why am I doing this today? If this serves that ultimate purpose, then who cares if we make a mistake along the way? It's just money. We'll make more of it. They literally print it. It means nothing. You know what I mean? It used to be my husband crazy when I didn't make any money because I would just spend it. And I told him my relationship with money is like Monopoly money. It's like this one has $100 on it. This one has a 500. This one has 1,000. I mean, you get the idea. I know that money doesn't really have $1,000 on it, but um, it's just what's the worst that can happen and what's the best that can happen. And I'm just going to focus on what's the best outcome here. This marketing campaign or me going out on my own and really like if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I want to know that I gave every little bit I had. And that alone, like we jokingly call it shoveling shit in the firm, like horses shit. We have horses. We have to shovel the shit. It's part of the job. You can't have the beautiful thing if you're not going to have to shovel some shit with it. So that is that is such a cool way. I think that if you can connect the dots to your past failures and your past painful experiences, if you can connect the dots to where I was and what I went through to where I am right now and where I'm going, then man, it all makes sense. And we all we're logical beings where we want to make sense of everything, including pain. My little 8-year-old was crying so much last night. Because she's like, why is everything happening in Ukraine like this? And there are children who don't have homes. And why do so many people have to suffer? And it's like, I don't have an answer for you. But what I do know is that the best way that we can honor that someone's going through something hard is to do something good. So you just need to wrap people in love tomorrow because you have so much to give. And that's the only thing that we can do right now. And I think that if people are thinking about owning their own law firm or going to work for a law firm like ours, like the three of us, we're crazy people. We're moving. We got our foot on the gas pedal. It does not go down any farther. And if you want to get on the train, it's already left the station. So you need to figure out how to run along, like in the movies. You know, you run along and trying to jump on the train tracks. Like I'll reach out my arm and sling you up here, and we can go together. Like you can't be afraid of failing. You can't be afraid of making a mistake. You can't be afraid of making a decision, because at the end of the day, that's self-abuse. Living in indecision is just abuse because you're toiling over and over and over about this decision. We have to have this conversation with our clients, all three of us. Are you going to make this decision or not? Are you going to stay in this abusive relationship with so-and-so X? Yes or no? Because if you are, you need to go over here for these services. And if you're not, let's figure out a way to get you the F out of there with as much money and your kids intact as possible. And the same is true for us. Like if we're working at Big Law or we're working at Mr. Nonprofit or whatever it is that we're doing, and we know that we ought not be there, make a decision about what you want your life to look like and just jump out of the airplane. The universe has already wrapped up your parachute for you. It will catch you. You just have to trust that whoever packed the parachute loves you enough to have packed it, and the universe does.
Well, and I think I love Gretchen Rubin, and she's the former law clerk, fancy pants, and has the Happier whole series. And one of her, maybe it's like secrets of adulthood, she calls it, is one of her guiding principles, whatever she calls it, is choose the bigger life. And when faced with a decision and you're not sure what to do, you only get to do life once. And we literally have no idea how long that is. And so to make decisions that open up the bigger life, when I heard that concept at first, and then as time has gone on, I try to bring that to the forefront of my mind of what's the bigger life here, and taking that as my cue, because you need those guiding principles, right? So firms will have these are our core values and whatever, but you as a person, you need those to make your decisions. And I know one of mine is always do the right thing in every situation, no matter the cost. That's like number one. Probably number two is live the bigger life. And in the context of thinking about starting your own firm, if that, and not just because you start your own firm, that doesn't necessarily mean the bigger life for all of us. Like, this is not a hate on Big Law. This is not a hate on working for other people. This is not a hate on any of that. It's just like, that's what we all three have in common. Then we're doing the show today. But the whatever the bigger life is for you, the thing that scares you a little bit. Because I in this journey had to read the book Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck. And and I've told this, like if anybody from St. Mary's is watching, you'd be like, oh my God, are you telling that again? But um, uh, if you would have asked me before I read that book, like, Hannah, do you have a growth mindset? I would have been like, duh, I'm like the most grow mindset ever. And then I read a chapter or so and I'm like, oh my God, I have a fixed mindset. I don't have a growth mindset. Oh no. And what that means is not like I like to grow. It's like this notion of continuing to put yourself in new and challenging situations that give you the opportunity to fail so that you grow and you expand. I didn't do that. I only did things that I sort of had that internal knowing I'm going to do real good at this for the most part, like literally all of my life. The best example I can think of is when I was in college. Saw these people in journalism major, and I was like, oh, I should probably really be a journalism major. That's what I should do. That seems cool. I better do that. And then I heard them saying like, oh, but the journalism majors, they get B's. And I'm like, even the really smart ones. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going in something that gets me B's. I literally didn't do it because I might get a B. I mean, it's the dumbest idea, but that notion is, I think, Hillary, exactly what you're talking about, of going and deciding to put yourself in those situations where you may fail. And like, that's the question. What's the worst that's going to happen? And I think lawyers, we hide so much behind, well, my reputation and my law license and my this and my that. I can't do that. And I think really often we use it as like, I'm going to include me in there, as a shield for insecurity and fear. And oh, I can't put this on the line. Look, think it through. You're not going to are you stealing clients' money? Are you not calling people back? Are you like doing drug deals with your law? I mean, that's what the bar is going to get you for. Like, generally speaking, the things you're doing are not going to like, right. But I think people try to use that as like this shield to not having to push themselves to the point of growth or failure, and failure that you learn from. And that, like, talk about one of the things I wish I would have known from the beginning. Somebody would have told me about growth mindset when I was 5 years old, and who knows what would have happened instead. But
I want to ask a question about all this mindset stuff.
Okay.
But before we do that, I want to
Yeah,
get.
there's a comment. It's so good.
Yes, you're talking about this one?
Yes.
Yes, Yun Wen. So she says, I didn't start to learn until recently and after lots of therapy that it is okay to make mistakes. And all you can do is keep moving forward. Fear of failure is what has always held me back. And it's something that I continue telling myself that it's okay. And I need to keep going or I will remain feeling stuck. Hearing y'all affirm this is so amazing.
yes, you win.
Yes. And Yunwen also says journalism school was the best thing ever. So,
Yeah, I know. Thanks, Yunwin. Rub it in. Oh,
so here's what I want to say about, like, I eat this stuff up. This is like one of the most fun conversations I've had this year. I love hearing y'all talk about this stuff, but I'm thinking about Hannah. Hannah and I are planning this women lawyers retreat in December. And yesterday, Hannah put the flyer out and all these people got excited about coming. And they had all these questions about, like, what if I'm an introvert? And then there was this comment that was sort of a joke, but there was a comment about, like, okay, but is it going to be all this mindset, entrepreneurial stuff? And it made me really aware that, like, I've now had the firm for 6 years and I have become a different person. You know what I mean? Like, that's something I didn't know. That's something I don't know if I wish I would have known it, but before becoming a law firm owner, I didn't read any mindset books. I didn't think about any of this stuff. And so I think, what would you all say to the people who are watching who are like, I am like turned off by that stuff. And I still wonder if can I be my own boss or run a law firm and not do mindset work? And I don't know how you're going to answer. I'm really curious about this. So, but tell me what y'all think.
Hillary, you first or me?
My initial response is that I think that we all have a deep desire to feel significant. I think it's part of our DNA, and what makes the human spirit so enduring is we all have we're all searching for significance. And when you know that you're significant, or you're in pursuit of finding what that significance is, you have to grow. So it's not necessarily about what's the mindset or however we want to package it. It's part of our innate DNA in every single human. Otherwise, we'd all still be wearing diapers and not, and like crawling, maybe not walking, but like all of us we are wired to aspire and to think. And that's what evolution is. We are an evolving species. And so whether it's entrepreneurial or whether it's personal growth, we can either avoid it. Like everybody has habits that they know are bad habits that they want to break. That's personal development. Everybody thinks about a New Year's resolution, whether you're someone who sets them or not. Everyone does think like, it's a new calendar year. What do I want to do this year? That's personal development. And whether you end on December 31st looking back and saying, I did it. I surpassed, like I can pull a Hannah and be like, I proved them wrong. Whether you do that or whether you're like, another year, here we go, that's personal development.
Well, and I think, okay, of course not. You can probably have a very successful law firm and you think all this stuff is hooey hooey baloney woo woo. Okay. So I think you can ignore us. But what I would posit to you is, if you're going to have a law firm and you're going to do more than just like have yourself, you will literally grow. The person you start, if you've not had a law firm before and you're going to have one, and it's going to be more than just you and your kitchen table, you will grow or you will fail. The end. Because you have to do, and like, even people don't have any idea of like what I did. I mean, I think people don't, because I had no idea what was going to go into it with this journey. And especially if you start to grow. So, I mean, I think mindset can be like, I don't know, it's a word you say so much that it's almost like, what does that even mean? Like I always think the word righteousness, like, what does that word even mean? Or leadership, almost like you say it so much, it doesn't even mean anything. But I think mindset, really what we're talking about is, to me, it's, oh, I'm going to cry. It's like an awareness that you're alive and that this is your shot. Like you're going around, you're literally moving on a rock around a star in the middle of a galaxy. Like I think all of us can agree that's scientifically possible, like the fact for the most, like pretty much everybody. And if that doesn't make you almost like cry with the magnificence, maybe that's part of it. It's like this awareness and this realization of like the sheer just magic of the whole thing. And so to me, mindset is just this awareness of who we are and who everyone around us is, and actually thinking about your life versus same thing on repeat. What's the new show? Is Desperate Housewives back? Is it Desperate Housewives? No, Real Housewives. I was like, that's old. Real Housewives back on. We're going to go back to the same beach house and kind of just feeling overall fine. And I think fine is not good enough for anybody watching this. I do not believe in fine for you. I decided not to settle for fine in my own life. I decided not to settle for a crappy life. And I had to burn my life down and rise from ashes. And so how do I have self-trust? It's because I climbed out by my fingernails. And for those of you watching, I know there's some of y'all, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And maybe you haven't continued, but don't look at the thing you had to climb out of, this bad thing that happened to you. I just envision myself like clawing out by my finger. If your fingernails popped off and that sucks, and maybe a lot of it wasn't your fault and everything else that happened to you, and you're out of that, but part of you's still stuck. Life is too short to let that to continue to make you ashamed, to continue to make you stuck, to continue to hurt you. We're literally on a rock around the sun, and this is it. So why not have a glorious life? And to me, making a law firm is just one part of that, and all of us get to help. Like we're helping immigrant families like live all their amazing life. I'm helping people get out of crappy situations and have some dignity and like get their stuff organized. But it's only one of the things. So I don't think you have to be a mindset person to have a law firm, but I just suggest maybe you have a little bit of a mindset awareness just to be a person on the planet. And I think if you'll just give it a chance and not be just all annoyed by it, then maybe there's some good answers for you. Or maybe you just change the channel, I guess.
We got to go to the comments because you're making people cry.
Oh my
Hannah.
God, it makes me so cry.
So powerful. And I'm like, I just want to like cut that clip and just put it on all the billboards all over the world. Yun Wen says you're making her cry. And then my husband Joshua says this is giving him chills. And he had to write down hooey baloney.
Hooey baloney woo woo. Yeah, that's like all of it.
He also always talks about your mommy water.
Oh, I know. I have the mama water on the ready.
I have mine. Do you have yours, Hillary?
I just have a cup. I don't know. Sorry, guys.
We'll change that, Hillary. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's in there.
I stopped using I abandoned my maiden name. I realized I did that just 1, or 2 years early. I could have been on here as my stage name, Hillary Gaston Walsh, because I would have fit in better. When
I know with all the three
I was
names.
joining, I was like, yeah, I should have given them my stage name.
Well, I guess for all of this, y'all, I mean, who knew we were going to talk about all this? I just thought we were going to talk about and make sure you get some systems in the beginning and whatnot. But
you should have known better.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily plan it, but I guess if you're, and maybe even just from some of the comments, like I think other people are watching this who are not law moms, and thank you for joining. This one's for literally everyone, and I just am on fire for people like living. And I just think so many people are zombies in your own life. And I did it, and I was a zombie, and I decided that, songs on the radio just weren't for me. That was kid stuff. Music and the way that it made you feel, that was something that was a part of, what people like for little kids or something, or I don't know. I just like, if you've killed off a part of yourself to live your current life, then I just wish for you and demand for you that you go unlock that door and be your full self. And I think one way to do that is to be a law firm owner, because you're going to confront every locked door inside of your entire body from head to toe and then out. You will literally confront them all. And so if you're not going to have the law firm owner experience, if you're in-house, if you're working for an insurance defense firm, if you're big law, if you're a mom, if you're executive assistant watching this, you can have an amazing life if you decide to do it. And you will not, like the universe, God, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, and everybody, they ain't going to give you don't get things like without some, there's, I don't want to say a catch, but there's like you got to give to get, meaning like, it's not just going to be easy, and it's not just going to show up at your doorstep. You got to put yourself out there. And I think so. And it just goes back to being right, two emotions, fear or love. And it goes back to our fear emotion. But like Hillary told us, like, what's the worst that could happen? You have to get a different job. Again, you have to go crawling back to your old employer and say, I'm sorry, you were right, I was crazy. I mean, it's not even that bad. So
I'm reading this really amazing book right now, and I had shared it with Kate, but it's called The Patriarchy Stress Disorder. And it talks about how we're all traumatized by like a social structure that like the people who created the structure and who mark like basically the people who usually would benefit most from a patriarchal structure are also traumatized by it, because as soon as you go outside of what social norms are, your wrist is slapped. And sometimes for women, it's really slapped. So yes, everyone knows at the firm I talk about done is better than perfect. And so they're repeating mantras in the comments. What is so fascinating about learning about fear or love is that sometimes we don't know why we have fear. Why are we scared of this thing? Like I have never I've never experienced X, but why am I so afraid of it? And there's science that shows that we have generational trauma. And so we are responding to trauma that our ancestors experienced. So whether it's my mom or her mom's mom, so my great grandmother, all the way up 6 generations from me, they can have, that woman can have experienced trauma, or my grandpa's all the way up can have experienced trauma, and all the way down the line down to me. I've never experienced that blunt force, for example, but I can still be afraid of it because in my DNA, I'm wired to protect myself from it. So when it's an irrational fear, there can be something that we don't know what it is, and you don't have to go find it, but you can still look at it and say, this is an irrational fear, and I literally feel X. I can sometimes before court, I will have, and this is why I love not having to go to court anymore, because I will have a absolute physical reaction to stress. So I just have to hang out on the toilet. Before the bar exam, I was in this Einstein Brother Bagels, and there was a one staller, and I was just like, ain't nobody getting in here because it's mine right now, because I had to empty out. That's my stress response. And it's so interesting because as an adult, I've realized my mom's stress response is the exact same. I don't know anybody else who has like full up attacks like that. But how interesting that my mom and I both react to stress this way. If my grandmother were alive, I wish I could have asked her and really start to figure out like, where does this come from? Because I guess it doesn't embarrass me, but it might be kind of gauche, but this is something that for a really long time I thought made me weird. And like, why do I react this way? And I was very frustrated with myself. Why, of all things, does it have to be this every single time I get really stressed out? Before bad conversations with authority figures, even if they're like not a real authority figure in my life, vendors in my business, Kate knows this, I will have that same stress response. It sucks. But when you start to look at it like, this is a way that at some point served me to keep me safe and protect me. Maybe it was generations ahead of me in my life that I've maybe never really needed to have this trauma response. You can kind of make sense of it, and I guess I don't want to say like give it love, but you can appreciate where you can meet yourself where you're at, and you can think, all right, this is just part of it. It's not always going to be this way. I am afraid of something. It is real. Like it is real to me right now, but I have to make a decision about whether it's going to dominate how I show up. And it's not, I'm going to choose that I'm going to hang out in the bathroom. I'm going to have the nice fluffy toilet paper because I'm going to need a lot of it. And then I'm going to show up to this meeting like the badass that I know that I am, even if
Well,
I'm scared.
Hillary, I think I know I've heard Elizabeth Gilbert, the Eat, Pray, Love author, at least on a podcast she was on or in one of the books, she talks about fear and her relationship with fear. And you think about your life like you're driving a car and you're going on a road trip, and fear's in the car with you. And you say, okay, fear, like I see you, you're here, you're along for the ride. I'm not going to be able to like drop you off at the rest stop with and meet Hillary apparently. But you're going to be in the car with me, but you're not going to get to drive. You're in the passenger seat. I acknowledge you. I'm aware of you. I see you, but I'm driving. And I try to really picture a car in my mind. And like, I don't know, I never really thought of fear. Fear is not an emotion I experience a lot of, honestly. So, but when it's there, I now think of it like an invader in my mind. Like, well, what are you doing here? And go over to the passenger seat. But for a lot of people, fear is driving their car. It's just like running your life, and it's the ego, and you're afraid. But I think fear is not good at answering questions. If you ask fear questions, it's has nothing to say. But then, and then you keep asking, and you're like, you would not make a very good lawyer in court. You have no answers to my questions.
Well, yeah, it wants to keep you where you are. It wants to keep you, safe.
Yeah, Kate,
Yeah,
what do
Kate,
you?
what do you?
I know
I
you've
know
had
you've
thoughts
had thoughts
about
about
fear and your
fear and your
relationship with
relationship.
it. I don't know. Do you want to add
Um,
anything here?
well, I actually think this is related to the question that just came in the comments. This is another question from my husband Josh, and he wants to know how us three powerhouses get all of our energy. And this is where I want to share that I used to fuel with alcohol and fear. And that up until a little over a year ago, I drank pretty regularly. I wouldn't consider myself, an alcoholic. I wasn't like, it wasn't a huge problem, but pretty much every day I would have a really hard day and I'd drink some wine at night and I'd get up the next morning feeling anxious and worried and overwhelmed and drink a lot of coffee. And I would just push through, like it would just freight train me through that day. And it was just like, okay, I got to get these things done. And then I made it. And Hillary invited me to do an alcohol detox in December of 2020. And it was at the beginning of December. And I was like, I can do 3 weeks and that'll probably be a good little reset for me, before the holidays start. And then I can pick it back up at the end of the year. And what I found at the end of that 3 weeks was that my daily energy source had shifted. I wasn't fueled by fear or anxiety every morning when I woke up. I mean, it was like that feeling of just like it's what used to get me up and get my body out of bed and get things done for me. And like everything that you both have shared has spoken to me so deeply about like living the life you were born to live, because I feel like what has shifted for me, and I'm so grateful to you, Hillary, for inviting this into my life, is that I'm now fueled by like this journey that I'm on. And I don't want, it's like I don't think about my obituary, but I do think at the end of this journey, what do I want the story to be? What do I want to have accomplished? And that's what gets me up and drives me every day. And I got to say, it is like so much more fun and inspiring to be driven from that energy source as opposed to daily fear and anxiety. For me, it was alcohol, but I think it could also just be a shift in mindset from like the macro perspective to the daily what you got to get done.
Yeah, Hillary, what do you think about that question, the energy question?
I think that I think that the idea that we are on a rock floating in space and somehow the things that I get to do make an impact, that's humbling and it's a huge responsibility. And I think about the person I was a couple years ago. And that person was like every single bit of me was trying to fight to get out. And I just had to keep stuffing her in like a jack in the box that you got to hold the lid on because she's going to pop out and she's all sorts of extra. We're going to keep the lid on this for a little while longer. And as as I let more of the jack in the box version of me out, it just feels so good. And I think that's a huge source of energy where, and for me, it all folds in on trust. And my like life mission is to live totally free. And for me, that means I have to be able to be different. Like if someone else is doing it that way, I mean, maybe it works for them, but I want to do things differently because this is my one life to live. And yeah, I do want to be an 80-year-old lady who people want to come out and sit on my front yard and we want to have good stories and memories together. And like Kate, I gave up drinking in May after calling the suicide hotline repeatedly while drunk because I knew, like, I think there's just something in us that just knows I was made for something so big and I can stuff it and stuff it and stuff it. Or I can say, I'm just going to go live it because if I don't, I'm going to kill myself stuffing all these other bits inside. And so there's this eternal, like this never ending source of energy that comes from that I think we all have, but we are stuffing so much. And maybe it's because we don't have the platform to really express. I think that lots of people belong on big old platforms and we get so tired of shouting through a straw when we need a megaphone.
Hmm.
And people like I just love being able to have a company with lots and lots and lots of women who work with me, because they inspire me. And like that for me is like the added benefit of having my own business, is having conversations. Like I got the sweetest birthday video, and it was a fraction of the people who work in the firm, and the people who did say things, they said things that like spoke to the marrow in my bones about, I think that you're brave. And I think that you are dot, 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 dot. And it said really positive things to me. And it wasn't that I was like, oh, good, they think I'm brave. It was, oh, good, I'm showing up because I know I am brave. I'm showing up. The Jack in the Box has bounced out, and I'm here for it. And I think that is a source of energy, when it's like, this is just me. I just get to be me today. I don't have to be anybody else. I can just be me. And that's really freeing.
Yeah, I think, Josh, that's a tough question. My whole life, people have been asking me, where do you get that energy? And I remember I was even thinking before, I was thinking of going to law school, and I was thinking of getting my master's in something. And I thought, well, maybe I'll go to psychology master's school, whatever that is, and like study about this idea of energy, because people always say that to me since ever. But I mean, as you asked the question, I was listening to Kate and listening to Hillary. And I think from me, what I've always had is a profound sense of gratefulness. And this awareness of, man, isn't this incredible? All of these things around us, air in our lungs, the green grass, the trees, the whatever, I don't know. And somehow for me, I think that awareness of it's all kind of magic, and we get to live it and have it and channel it somehow. If I'm in that space, there's no bound to my zest and zeal for life and for people, and just calling on them to like, but don't you understand? Like, you literally were an amphibian inside of your mother, like breathing fluid, and now you breathe air. And if you went back, you would drown, but now you don't. What is that? Right? Also, things like the post office. How does the post office work? How do you put a stamp on a letter and it shows up in, Beijing? Like, how is that even a thing? It's incredible. So I guess that's the answer.
I think we can end on that. No, I mean, that was so well put. This was such an amazing conversation. And like, y'all, I got two of my best friends to meet each other in this show, and this is the conversation that happened. When you introduce two people you love, and you're like, I hope they like each other. Well, I think they liked each other.
The best. And Hillary's coming. Okay, really quick, last as we recap, the Law Moms Out Loud retreat for lawyer moms that we've talked about. We just asked the Austin kind of community and a couple of like our BFFs, like Hillary and I think one of the person from out of state, but I think it's going to sell out. And there will be mindset-y part of it. But if you don't want any part of that, we will not hold you down. There will be your own whole thing. So don't get all stressy or whatever. It will be awesome, we promise. But if you're one of our law mom friends watching this and you're interested, we're working on getting as much possible space as we can, because I think it's going to be a whole thing, and Hillary will be there with us, which I'm so thrilled about. And we'll be back for Law Moms Out Loud, our next show, week after next, right? We're every other week. So we'll roll out our topic and our speaker, and we'll be sharing that with y'all. If you haven't liked the page, if you haven't joined the group, if you're a lawyer mom, please do that. We're working on some additional content and stuff. And we are just so grateful that you took, I guess, a little over an hour now. We talked, like, we're not going to go over an hour. We're going to maybe more like 30 minutes. And, here we are. So, for sharing your lunch with us and holding space for this conversation. I've got a lot to think about, and we'll look forward to having you next time. Hillary, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. I love you ladies so much.
Bye, friends.
Bye, guys.